morning, gentlemen. Dirk here with the MGTOW solution. Today's video is going to be about health and fitness, an area near and dear to my heart. In fact, that's how I make my living, at least for the time being. I'm going to head out today on a little skate skiing, which I haven't done for a while, so we'll see how that goes. But I think I'll be all right. When I get done with that, I'll head back, put the video together, and put it online. So right now, I got to head out. See you later. Now, even in the context of MGTOW, people tend to focus on their specialties, and to me, that's a good thing. Some men are well-versed in history, for example, so they're far more qualified than I am to speak on how that subject applies to men going their own way. And I can learn from them. Our community provides a diverse mix of viewpoints, which I find very useful. My field is health and fitness, so for this series of videos, I'm going to stick to that. To me, it's an important topic because MGTOW are, by definition, striving to live a better life, and health and fitness is a part of that. I'm not going to provide specifics on how to work out, because that would take forever, and there's a ton of stuff out there already. But I'll hit the key points that I think people should keep in mind, and I'll point out some resources where you can get more specific information, with links included in the comments section. Let me start by stating that I'm not a health nut, as I've occasionally been accused of, often by land whales. I eat pizza and cheeseburgers, and I drink beer. I just don't do those things every day. I also don't work out for 4 hours every day. But I do try to strike a balance of all the things that impact my health. The reason I do it is because I like doing things outside, like mountain biking and hiking. At my age, I have to pay attention to my health in order to keep doing those things. Besides, I'm kind of hyper, so I actually enjoy training. To me, it's not a chore at all. I grew up surfing, skateboarding, and skin diving in Southern California. I was definitely not a jock. In fact, I was the opposite of a jock. I was a stoner. I smoked cigarettes and partied a lot, but I was always physically active. I just didn't do any organized sports. At the time, skateboarding was exploding, and I got heavily into it. My buddies and I would practice for hours, and we got pretty good. Because we were young, we could eat whatever we wanted, drink till we puked, and still go ride or surf the next morning. What really got me into working out was something that happened after I had been in the Navy for a couple of years. My chain of command told me one day that they were sending me to pilot rescue swimmer school because the ship needed at least 3 crew members to be qualified in case an aircraft falls down. I was still smoking a pack a day, and so protested that they had the wrong guy. They should find an actual athletic individual for that. I knew this was a tough school, and I figured there were other guys better qualified than me to attend. But they knew I was good in the water, and I worked hard, so they decided I'd be fine and sent me anyway. The school was 2 weeks of swimming under parachutes, practicing rescue carries, and shit like that. It culminated in a 2.5-mile swim in full uniform while carrying some gear. Somehow, I managed to pull it off. Once my muscles recovered, I realized that I was in better shape than when I started, and I liked it. I also liked the sense of achievement, and so decided it was time for me to shift my lifestyle a bit. So I quit smoking and started running, as well as swimming. I've been working out pretty consistently ever since. My point here is that you don't have to be a born athlete to change your life and get fit. I ended up running in a marathon relay as part of a unit team, where I learned that races weren't just for people who are in it to win, like I had always assumed. Turns out that 99% of people who do endurance races are only competing with the clock and maybe themselves. Yet, somehow, everyone seemed to be having fun, even the guy in last place. So I started entering 5Ks, then 10Ks, then half marathons. Since I was also already into swimming, someone suggested triathlon, and I got into that pretty seriously. I never won a race, and that wasn't the goal, but entering a competition tends to motivate a person to train, so I was in great shape. I did manage to qualify for the Nationals one year, where I went out and had my ass handed to me by the best triathletes in the country. Triathlon is a very humbling sport. I don't have any natural athletic talent. My whole family is overweight and sedentary, so I was never going to excel in endurance sports, to say nothing of strength sports. I was always a hard gainer in the gym, and I'm sure I limited myself by smoking for so many years when I was young. But I had a fucking blast working out and racing with my friends. We'd do open water swims and then have cookouts on the beach. We had pre-race dinner parties and dreamed up all kinds of crazy workouts. Since then, I've been a triathlete on and off, but I also got heavily into mountain sports, namely Nordic skiing, mountaineering, and rock climbing. Along the way, I always did some cursory strength training, but I really loved endurance sports because I liked training outside. I had to learn to love the gym, and now that I've seen the benefits, I do. Since I really enjoyed training, I decided to get my first certification about 15 years ago as a personal trainer. I've been working in the field since then, and I'm now a strength and conditioning coach for the military. Best job I ever had. I'm giving you all that background information to drive the point home that if you want to get the most out of life, then you gotta stay in shape. And you have to take a long-term approach to that. If you think there's a quick fix or some magical 6-week workout that'll get you to your goals, I'm here to tell you there's not. It's an ongoing process, not unlike MGTOW. The problem most people have is psychological. They lack the motivation to get started because a body at rest tends to stay at rest. But then one day they say to themselves, I'm going to get in shape, and they make drastic changes they can't hope to maintain. This happens every New Year on January 1st, where gyms get crowded for about 2 weeks. People starve themselves and train like animals, but then burn out mentally or break down physically. So before you do anything, you need to have the right mindset, meaning that you understand that fitness is a long-term project, in fact, a lifelong process. Then you have to take stock of where you're at, and you need to be brutally honest with yourself. What kind of fitness program is best for you depends on a lot of variables: your age, your current fitness level, your athletic history, your genetics, your schedule, your interests, your goals, your environment, and a bunch of other stuff. But I'm going to make this as simple as possible. Your chosen training program is up to you. You just need to make sure that whatever you're doing includes a mix of strength training, endurance training, conditioning, and mobility work. And it doesn't take as much time as you may think. Just understand that it doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in right now. Every day you're either gaining or losing fitness, or maintaining your current capabilities. So if you do a bit more exercise today than you did yesterday, you're probably gaining fitness. Let me interject right here an observation about men and women that I realized long before I was MGTOW. It's much harder for men to achieve or maintain a good physique than it is for women. Generally speaking, if a woman simply keeps her body fat under control, she'll be considered to have a nice body. That's not the case for men, because they have to either be born with or develop a relatively high level of muscle mass. And I'm not talking about juiced-up bodybuilders. I mean that in order to have an athletic physique, you can't just stay lean. Not if that means you look skinny and weak. And for most men, gaining muscle is far more difficult than losing fat. It's way easier for a woman to maintain legs and an ass that will attract the opposite sex than it is for a man to earn a compliment like, "That guy has great arms." It doesn't really matter, and I'm certainly not suggesting you should work out to attract women. I'm just pointing it out to demonstrate another example where men don't in fact have it easier than women, as we're constantly told. I'm going to move on to some basic principles here, but again, I'm not going to do workout videos or attempt to prescribe any programming because I have no idea who's watching. You might be a 22-year-old Green Beret or a 60-year-old cardiac patient for all I know, so I can't recommend specific programming. However, I can provide the basic knowledge so you can make an informed decision about what might work for you and then point you in the right direction. You need a mix of strength, conditioning, cardio, and mobility. Strength training seems to trip a lot of guys up, so I'll start with that. There are a lot of misconceptions about strength training, but here are the key points. First, with most lifts, 5 sets of 5 repetitions is a good place to start if the goal is to increase strength. 5x5 is a proven protocol provided your weights are heavy enough. That is, heavy enough that you can barely pull it off without sacrificing technique, which is something you should never do. Second, you need to train 7 basic movement patterns. These are all compound, multi-joint movements that'll develop the functional strength that applies in real life. You can throw in some preacher curls or whatever, but don't neglect these 7 patterns, which come to us from Coach Mike Boyle out of Boston. The 7 basic movement patterns are knee dominant. These are mostly things like squats. Hip dominant. This is things like deadlifts and kettlebell swings and a few other things. Then you need some kind of horizontal push, like a bench press or push-up. You need a horizontal pull, which is some kind of a row. You need a vertical push, which means some kind of overhead press, and a vertical pull, which for me means pull-ups. Then you need some core training, including rotation. These are far more productive than isolated single-joint moves performed while sitting on furniture, and by that I mean machines. Yes, free weights are in fact superior to machines in almost all cases. If you train each of those patterns twice a week, you'll hit every major muscle group and you'll make gains. Start relatively light, but continuously add weight as you get stronger. Also, whenever you have a choice, train standing up. Chances are you sit enough already. For example, you can sit comfortably on a padded bench to do shoulder presses, or you can stand up to do them. Which version is going to help you more in real life, like when you're putting something heavy on a high shelf? Stand up to train wherever possible, gentlemen. It pays off. Third, if you have no clue what you're doing in the gym, you're going to have to learn how to lift. Don't count on a personal trainer for this, because many of them are complete hacks. If you find a good one, fine, but being certified by itself doesn't mean squat. Same goes for CrossFit instructors. Some are great, some are clueless. More on that later, but if you're relying on someone else to teach you, do some homework and make sure they have the experience to actually help you. Oh, another good rule of thumb is don't ever copy anything you see other people doing in the gym. I've witnessed some incredible stupidity over the years. You can educate yourself, but you'll have to sift through a lot of BS if you just look for random stuff on YouTube, so I'll make a couple of recommendations here. For basic strength training, check out stronglifts.com. For functional strength training and mobility, anything by Kelly Starrett is legit. His site is mobilitywod.com. If you want to focus on kettlebells, go with Pavel at strongfirst.com. He's a cool old Russian Spetsnaz dude. If you're going to do Olympic lifts, look to Greg Everett's work at catalystathletics.com. If you're serious about endurance sports, then Joe Friel's books are a great resource. He's at trainingbible.com. Links are provided below. I mentioned conditioning, and by that I mean what's known as glycolytic energy system development. You might think of it as stamina. The CrossFit guys call it Metcon, but I don't use that term because it isn't specific. All conditioning is metabolic. More on that in a minute. So far, we know that you need to do some strength training built around the 7 movement patterns. You need to get some cardio. You need some conditioning, and you need to maintain or develop the mobility to do all this stuff safely. There's really just one more thing to keep in mind. The body uses 3 energy systems to perform work, and you need to train all 3 systems. The phosphagen system is for immediate energy up to about 20 seconds duration. It's the system used for short sprints or 1-rep max lifts, as well as the Olympic lifts. The glycolytic system is for things between about 20 seconds and 2 minutes, and this is the one we're focused on during conditioning. Finally, there's the oxidative or aerobic system, which is for long activities over 2 minutes. In other words, cardio. If you train all 3 of those energy systems and the 7 movement patterns, you'll have everything covered. It's pretty simple. I wouldn't consider any program that doesn't include all of those things as ideal, but the fact is, if you're just getting started, almost anything is better than nothing, unless it causes you an injury. I know people who only run, for example, or only do spin classes. Is it optimal? No. Is it better than sitting on your ass? Yeah. Getting back to cardio, there are too many options to get into all of them here, but I'll make a couple of points. If you're significantly overweight and sedentary, don't start with running. Start with walking or something else where excess weight won't cause an injury. Also, progress gradually in both volume and intensity. A good guideline is to add no more than 10% per week. Alternate strength days with cardio days if you're deconditioned. It's a bit of a myth that cardio is the best way to lose weight. The best exercise for losing body fat is table press-aways. You know, press away from the dinner table with all the bread and pasta on it. You can't train your way out of crappy nutrition. I'm not going to go very deep into nutrition, but it's pretty simple. Don't eat crap all the time. When it comes to working out, most people have more excuses than a knocked-up nun. But I figured, since you're MGTOW, you can't blame your shitty nutrition on a wife who loves to cook, and you can't claim to be too busy because you're in charge of your own life. And this is the reason that liberated men can achieve much higher levels of health and fitness than their married counterparts can. They have the time, money, and energy to do so. You know, the resources that you probably used to give away. Just one more reason MGTOW is a great lifestyle. All right, let's talk a little about food. In my experience, whole foods and maybe some intermittent fasting are the way to go. And by whole foods, I'm not including whole grains. Grains suck, despite what you've been told. They're not even good for feeding cattle because what you ate matters. In other words, stick with grass-fed beef. Shoot for 80 to 90% clean nutrition and you'll do fine. Avoid grains, sugar, and industrial seed oils. Just buy foods that only contain one ingredient, which means you'll mostly avoid the processed crap that most people live on. Take the time to shop and cook your own food. Go ahead and do some cheat meals if you'd like, but don't take an entire cheat day where you just gorge on junk all day long. A good resource for nutritional info is Chris Kresser's work, which is based on a reasonable, mostly paleo approach. He's at chriskresser.com. Don't count on government agencies for nutritional advice. Remember, that's the same government that told you what a great deal marriage was. Enough said. As for supplements, if your nutrition is dialed in, you probably won't need them. If you're a hard gainer, a quality protein powder might help, but your nutrients are always best consumed as actual food. Okay, let's look at some common training approaches in no particular order. Bodybuilding. Serious bodybuilding is a serious commitment, and it still has its place. After all, it's about increasing muscle mass and losing fat, which most of us want. But that doesn't make it the best way to train for everyone. The main drawback is that if this is the only type of training you do, then you'll lack the kind of real-world functional fitness that most people want to have. There's no question that if hypertrophy is the primary goal, then bodybuilding principles are the best way to get there. But the focus on single joint movements presents two potential problems. One, you might not develop functional strength, and two, you might miss a muscle group entirely. Amateurs training with bodybuilding protocols are notorious for this. They only train mirror muscles and ignore anything they can't see in the mirror. And they typically become shoulder patients when they've developed a 300-pound bench press but can't do a single pull-up, something I've seen over and over again. Bench presses are great for the front side, but you have to train the back as well. That means pulls. A better approach would be to train the 7 movement patterns as your primary exercises, then supplement those with the single joint stuff, like curls. And by the way, the best way to raise testosterone levels is heavy compound movements, for example, bench, squat, deadlift for 5x5. If you're concerned about T levels, get them checked, but the fix isn't always a prescription. Get strong, keep your nutrition clean, avoid soy and grains, and your T levels will most likely be fine. And don't get carried away with cardio. If you do, your T levels will drop. CrossFit. A lot of guys in my field have totally rejected CrossFit, but I think CrossFit has it about 90% right. It's gotten people away from single joint and chronic cardio training and gotten them to realize that training needs to be hard. Unfortunately, the other 10% is so wrong that a lot of people are getting hurt. The fact is, CrossFit includes a lot of advanced exercises, so it's not a good choice for most beginners. There are exceptions, but I got a lot of knee, shoulder, and back patients from CrossFit. Here's my main concerns. 1. It only takes 2 days to get certified and then open your own CrossFit gym. So any yahoo with a free weekend and a credit card can get certified. That's not enough experience. 2. Much of the training is done for time, and Olympic lifts are often included. I love conditioning circuits, but Olympic lifts have no place in them because the O lifts are about developing power with the phosphagen energy system, and circuits are mostly glycolytic. They're also highly technical, and under that kind of metabolic fatigue, technique suffers, which leads to number 3. Technique is often sacrificed because the workouts are done for time. In fact, kipping pull-ups, in other words, crappy pull-ups, are the norm, and that creates a lot of shoulder and low back patients. One more thing I'm not a fan of is the elitist attitude common in the CrossFit crowd. They proclaim their athletes the fittest on earth, and there's no question that those athletes are amazing. But I'll bet the fittest man on earth is some Himalayan Sherpa no one's ever heard of, or some special forces guy somewhere. Depends entirely on how you define fitness. And they tend to talk shit about triathletes, but that's just because they can't swim. Other than that, CrossFit's got it pretty much right. The thing is, every CrossFit gym is different. Some are world-class excellent, while others are run by complete hacks. The best thing I can suggest is find out if the coaches at a particular gym have education beyond CrossFit Level 1 or even Level 2. Someone there should be certified with USA Weightlifting, and if they have exercise science degrees, so much the better. But if they put you in an on-ramp program and tell you to start kipping because you can't do a single proper pull-up, go elsewhere. They don't know what they're doing. Same thing if they tell you CrossFit is the only way, everyone else is a moron, and then offer you a cup of Kool-Aid. Powerlifting. The sport of powerlifting consists of the bench press, squat, and deadlift. He who lifts the highest total wins. I'm including this here not because you need to be a powerlifter, but because everyone should do these exercises or some variation. Squat is knee dominant, deadlift is hip dominant, and bench press is a horizontal press. If you add a standing barbell press, pull-ups, rows, and some core work, you've hit all 7 of those movement patterns. Endurance sports. I love endurance sports, but there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Running is generally a good thing and a fundamental human capability, but that doesn't mean marathons are better than 5Ks. In fact, I think 5K is perfect for most people. Far enough to get the health and fitness benefits, but short enough to reduce injuries and leave enough time for strength training. The thing is, anyone who only does one exercise for extended periods usually ends up having problems. Cyclists are a good example because they generally have horrible mobility from spending all that time crouched over on a bike. That doesn't mean you shouldn't ride bikes, but you need to do other things as well. Group exercise classes. Lots of people love their group classes, but I'm not one of them. I don't need a group to provide moral support or encouragement in order to train hard. If that's your thing, by all means go for it. You won't catch me in a Zumba class, but I do jump in with some yoga classes at times because I know that for me, I can benefit from the mobility and breathing focus. If you join a gym and classes are included, check them out if they look interesting. Team sports. The thing about sports like basketball and soccer is you're supposed to get in shape to play those sports, not play the sports to get in shape. The military often makes that mistake, thinking that if they can make everyone play football, they'll be able to pass their fitness test. Invariably, the more out of shape they are, the higher the rate of injuries. I wouldn't recommend jumping into a sports league if you're badly deconditioned. If you're in decent shape, go for it, but make sure you have the right gear, including the right shoes. Martial arts. Martial arts training is awesome, partly because you're working a lot on skills and fitness gets developed as a byproduct, but also because there tends to be a lot of focus on efficient movement, mobility, and psychological skills. Then there's the obvious advantage of learning how to fight. All of that said, you still need to do some strength training and maintain healthy body fat levels. I've seen some highly skilled and capable martial artists that were still pretty out of shape. Better to have the skills as well as the fitness. This was demonstrated in the evolution of the UFC. It used to be enough to be highly skilled, but now you need that level of skill and the conditioning to endure a fight. These days, fighters are among the fittest athletes anywhere, by any standard. There are a ton of other beneficial activities to choose from. Find something you love first, then all of your workouts can support that, whether it's surfing or motocross. The key is to find something that'll work for you long term. Keep in mind that negative self-talk like, "I hate running," just reinforces that belief. I don't enjoy running much when I'm out of shape for it, but when I'm in shape, a trail run is often the highlight of my day. Same thing with lifting. Once you start getting stronger, you'll probably learn to like it. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. And don't be discouraged by genetic limitations. We all have a certain genetic potential, and most people don't come anywhere near reaching theirs. You don't need to be a shredded bodybuilder to benefit from weight training, and you don't need to win Ironman to benefit from cardio. Your attitude is the number one determinant of your success, and achieving a higher level of fitness helps with your psychological outlook, so it's like a positive feedback loop. It also helps to have specific, measurable, and realistic goals. If you're really trying to improve, you can't just say that you want to get in shape. That's not going to cut it. It's too vague, and you'll never know when you've achieved it. Better goals are things like run a 5K in under 20 minutes, or deadlift twice your body weight. Okay, I realize that was a lot of info, so I'm going to stop here. I'll continue the discussion on motivation next time and cover a bit about injury prevention. Until next time, thanks for listening and have a great day.